investing in our kids yield positive investments, not only for the children and their families, but also for society, resulting in higher earnings and economic self-sufficiency through higher earnings and combating poverty. They obtain higher educational standards, more economic growth for our state, which is important in helping to reduce contact with the criminal justice system. We also talked about, or I at least talked about, how our budget reflects our priorities and our values. We debated, and at the end of that debate, schools received, or public schools received, $0 in general purpose aid, pretty much guaranteeing that property taxes will go up if the schools decide to utilize the full levy for the $325 allowed per pupil, plus an additional $88 the first year and roughly about $121 the second year. There are times when we get it wrong in this body. And those wrong mistakes that we make, or the failure to invest, results in dire consequences for our taxpayers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got it wrong and how taxpayers are footing the bill for those wrong decisions that we made right here in this body. In 2017, Act 185 was passed with bipartisan support and signed then by our former governor, Governor Walker, to create 3 new Type 1 facilities and to relocate our children in our youth services closer to home. More than 8 years later, after passing Act 185, which requires the Department of Correction to move youth into smaller regional facilities closer to their homes, we are still trying to close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake. Now, in 2019, Governor Evers requested $115 million to move the project forward, but the Joint Finance Committee removed all of the funding, including the original $25 million, which was allocated to begin building the new youth correctional facilities. In the 2021 and 23 budget, Governor Evers requested $46 million specifically for the Milwaukee facility, since Milwaukee housed the most juvenile residents at Lincoln Hill and Copper Lake. The Joint Finance Committee cut that amount, cut the $46 million, but decided to give just $4 million for design and land acquisition. Construction funding was not approved until April 2022, which added an additional $41 million. So because of those delays, the cost to taxpayers increased from an estimated $46 million to $77 million and delayed that project by 2 years. Now, 123 FTEs to staff the recently completed Mendota Juvenile Treatment Center expansion was requested in a process to help us close Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake and get closer to moving those kids to regional facilities. A JFC Republican objected to the request, and the party sat on it for half a year and only released those funds after a youth counselor died at Lincoln Hills. $83 million to construct a second Type 1 facility in Dane County was requested. So that too was denied, but the legislature approved a construction funding for facility, instead approving $6 million for planning funds. And a cost that is going to cost us well over $100 million to create that facility going forward, and pushing Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake's closure off past 2027.